sorry, that new thing that Zoom does scares the bejesus out of me every time. And I should be right. I should be so used to that because now every Zoom that I've been on says that. I should be used to it. It scares me every time. But anyway.
Right. I will make sure I look at the right camera too. I gotta look up.
Yes. All right. So, welcome to Let's Talk Java. I am your host, Laarni Mulvey, and I am out here in the Chicagoland area and having a wonderful offline conversation with our guest today, Dr. Toni. And we're going to jump into it right away because there's just so much cool stuff that we can talk about that we have to pick and choose. But first question I'm going to have for Dr. Toni is, what's in your cup today?
Well, Laarni, I actually have a cup from Drexel University, which has a story to it as well. But inside the cup is some espresso. So I like to travel around the world during the day, and it brings back memories of different places. And I have my espresso in there that reminds me of my trip to Italy. So I make sure that I have at least one cup a day.
Oh, nice. Even though it's cold, you said it was cold, but
Yeah,
you're still
yeah,
gonna drink
it's
it.
been in the cup for a little too long, right?
Well, Dr. Toni, you have a very interesting, I shouldn't say interesting, it's like, should be normal, but and then a title or, what you call yourself, it's very interesting and I think is really cool. So give us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, my name is Dr. Toni Bear, and I have had a very long and illustrious career. I started off, and you might not even know this, Laarni. I started off as a high school history teacher and basketball, track, and hockey coach. And I taught people about different places around the world. I taught world cultures and American history. And, that was chapter one of my life and career as a teacher. Chapter two was being an education professor, teaching people how to teach history. And I would visit schools and I would be a coach. I was a coach to high school athletes. Now I'm a coach to teachers for the next 20 years. And the
Wow.
last 10, 15 years, I've been teaching history myself, but my doctorate is in sexuality studies and multicultural studies. So finally, at the end of my teaching career in my 25th to 35th year, I get to teach women, gender, and sexuality studies and history to college students. And one more year, and then I'm retired. So that's been my 35-year career. I think I'll retire at year 40.
Wow. That is a very long teaching career of teaching people. Like being the teacher of the teacher of the teacher.
Right. It's a lot of teachers in that sentence, right?
Yes.
So,
Well,
in corporate, they just say train the trainer, right?
yes. I've heard that so
But in
many times.
education, we say education professor, and now I'm a history professor. I'm in a history department.
Wow. Wow. I love your extensive like training in history and then especially like gender women's studies and sexuality. Like I think that is a really cool. I don't even think I'm trying to think when I was in college if that even was a course that was offered. I can't even remember. Like I
It,
can't even
it
remember.
was it was there, but it's such like a specialized segment. There's a women's center on campus, and
Mhm.
then there's maybe a feminist club, and
Mm.
then you have your gender sexuality studies courses around that. And I was never a part of any of that. And I taught in other departments and coached kids, and eventually adults. But it's the end of my career that I'm finally returning to what I studied in the first place. And now women, gender studies, sexuality studies is much more mainstream on many campuses.
That's really interesting because I really like now I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, how did I learn anything about that? But what made you go into getting your doctorate in that?
Right. So I never wanted to get a doctorate. In fact, I never wanted to go to school my whole life. In fact, Larnie, the idea that I've graded papers and had homework my entire life, and I'm in my upper 50s now, is ludicrous. That would have been the last thing that I'd want to do is have homework my whole life, right?
Yes.
So, you know, after about 8 years of public school teaching, it was at a time in the 80s where there was a dip in monies and recessions and taxes, and there was a taxpayers revolution in Pennsylvania, and I was laid off 3 different times. And each time I
Mm.
was laid off, I'd go dip ice cream or I'd moonlight in a prison at night. I did anything I could to survive. But the last time it happened, I was like, this is ridiculous. Let me look at graduate school. I love multicultural studies, and I applied to 50 different schools to train their teachers.
Mhm.
And I had 3 offers, one in Atlanta, one in Oklahoma, and one right out of San Francisco, and I was coming out gay at the time.
Mhm.
Well, a full paid job in a university, teaching teachers in a place that's like the gay capital of the United States doesn't sound like that was too hard of a decision, right? So I thought, well, let me go out there. And when I started my doctoral studies, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just wanted to spend a year in California and have fun. While I'm laid off, while I'm getting getting monies for being
Yes.
laid off, right? Let me retrain. And the first course I had, the professor said, getting a doctorate is not that hard. Finishing your doctorate is very, very hard. You
Mm.
need to have a fire in your belly because life is going to get hard and it's going to be tough staying up late at night and getting up early in the morning. And this is going to take you years
Mm.
to
Mm.
do,
Mm.
right? So you need a fire in the belly. Well, my little sister, when I was in my 20s, um, was very depressed at some time. And I happened to come home and found her after a suicide attempt.
Ah.
And she survived. We got her to the hospital and everything. And when everything came out, she was questioning her sexuality.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
even though she had a loving family, that a very close family of loving people, she would rather not be on this earth than deal with the stigma of being gay with her family and her friends, etc. And the fire in the belly, I decided to study gay kids and
Mhm.
coming out
Mhm.
and the importance of youth groups, support groups for gay kids. That was the passion in my belly, was I didn't want to lose one more teenager to suicide, because they were questioning their sexual identity. So you can imagine, not that it was easy finishing my doctorate, but it was the fire in the belly that I've spent a career, maybe not teaching that topic.
Mhm.
I do now, but not teaching a topic, but being an activist, helping gay community centers, helping schools set up support groups, etc., on the side for a lifetime of service to a greater gay community, but the entire everyone's community. That's
Wow.
where it came from. You didn't know that.
I didn't. Well, now I do. Thank you for sharing. That is a very great, relatable journey for, I think, a lot of people going, like questioning and understanding and like looking for support. And I mean, I'm so glad that you are an advocate to support that, that journey or that part of their journey, because I mean, I know people probably like struggle inside and don't really know how to ask or what to ask or who to go to. So that's really an awesome, like awesome part of that journey. And especially you're helping and serving, like a lot of the people who need a hand, pretty
Right.
much. So thank you for that. That is really cool. I mean, I'm sorry about your sister, but like that's, like what she did, that she was hurting so much that she did that. But just the result of it helping other people, I think is amazing. You
Yeah, yeah, and it's just amazing. Her daughter just turned 17 yesterday,
know.
and for her birthday, she put up on Facebook the National Suicide Hotline, and what she wanted more than anything was for us as her relatives to give money to that hotline. Um, so, you know, this my family extended, this is very important to all of us that we take care of people that feel troubled and alone, so it was nice to see that that's what my sister's daughter put up as what she wanted her birthday money to go towards.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Because I know when I was going through like my identity, I had like an identity crisis in high school, and I just didn't know who I was, and it was because I felt like I didn't have that representation of an Asian American woman, strong woman that I wanted to see. Like I had my parents and I had my culture that I respected, but I was still like in that phase of being an immigrant, moving to the US when I was 5 and going, who am I? Like, who am I? Who am I? And like, I went through the suicidal attempts in high school because I didn't know who I was, and I didn't have anyone to turn to. And I think nowadays there is a resource to help, and there is people that can be supportive of you. So I think that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's what I did for a long career. What I'm doing now is I'm turning the same thing, but I'm helping adult women now.
mm-hmm.
With not coming out gay, because
Let's talk about this.
40 years later, coming out gay isn't like this. I mean, it is traumatic for some people in some places, and et cetera. But, helping women, giving women permission to be sexual, I think that is where, that's where my efforts are now, because I think there are so many unhappy adult women having issues related to their sexuality or their relationship and sexuality being an issue in that they are now the ones that I am most concerned with, that are home alone by themselves with fantasies in their head that they can't actualize, or thinking that there's something wrong with them because they feel a certain way or they want a
Mhm.
certain thing. I don't think this has stopped. And now we're adults, right? And we've never really learned about our own sexuality.
Right.
And we have really no one to turn to.
Exactly, exactly. Like I don't realize sometimes even for myself, like I'm more open than I was ever before, but it's like when I was younger, I was like, "Oh no, don't talk about that. No, 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 don't say that." And I was actually talking to a friend of mine yesterday. We were talking about the word perineum.
Hmm, okay. I'm impressed you can say that. And I had to go through my head. What is she talking about? Oh, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, he was talking to me yesterday about the word perineum, and because it's part of a medication, it like affects the perineum, and
Hmm.
it says this on TV, and he was just like shocked about they said perineum on TV, but they also described what the perineum was on TV for this medication, and
I would think they'd have to.
and I was like, well, at least they use the scientific terms, the scientific anatomy terms. And he's like, but you would think that people would know what the perineum is. I go, no, but they know what the taint is. If you say that, they're like, oh, that area.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly.
So it's like, to I feel like that education there has to be a balance where there's no shame.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes there's that shameful, like, oh my God, you said the word penis, like but
Right.
if you say the other terms, it's like second nature. But you say the scientific term, and it's like, oh my God, hee.
It
And
just reminds me when I go into a classroom of seventh graders and the teacher's talking about the rubber plant in, and the kids all get giggly.
and I feel like it should be okay.
Hmm.
Like for me, like I think I am open to discussion and open to learning so much because I've had to go through my journey of learning who I was,
Mm-hmm.
that I am so interested. Like I'm interested in all these things. And so your other title is, go ahead, say it. Say it.
What, that I'm a sexologist?
Yes.
Oh, it just means I study sex, right? That I study sex. That sitting around me are books. Oh, let me pull one right here. Like this book, like I read and I study. This one is Sex Secrets, right? So, so and then as I got into this and I started reading, and this is from the 1970s, I found this in a library and I had to buy it when I got home, because there's really good information about tantric sex and Kama Sutra and Eastern sexual traditions that are part of Asian societies. And, when I think about most Asian cultures, that when I come into contact with women, there's a lot of women in my Facebook group from India, and there's so much shyness and shame. And what I'm reading about now and trying to figure out, learning, and I don't have the answer yet, is how did they get from a culture of celebration of sex to shame and ignoring sex? And I have hypotheses, but I don't know what the answer is. Was it colonization? Was it the damn British that did it, right? Or is it a class issue between working class and upper class, and it's the upper class that are doing the tantra and writing about it? And so I you know I will not outlive my curiosity. So I study sex and I study sexuality because I just want to know.
Isn't that part of us as a human being? Like our curiosity is trying to know and trying to understand, like,
Right.
and like sex should be something that's enjoyable and not what is the word, like enjoyable but not like shouldn't be embarrassed about it.
Right.
It's like that song, the birds do it, the bees do it, everybody does.
Right. And we don't talk about it,
And we don't talk about it. It's something that I don't know. Like I just see it a lot as like when I went through a phase of not knowing what my sexuality was and how like, okay, what is it, and I like went through like my own personal questions and stuff. And when I finally was like 100% for sure, I went through a whole bunch of different relationships. I went through tons of learning about myself. And I think that's part of this process, to like embrace yourself and learn about yourself. And we shouldn't be afraid of understanding who we are and loving who we are. So,
right.
and I think
And
that's very
a lot of people do this in secret though. And that's when we get into trouble. I'm going to be telling a story on my podcast later today about one of the most dysfunctional sexual interludes I've ever had that ended up with a pimp, a gun, and me taking off. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Everybody I'll let you guys know where this podcast is here in a minute, but it's a very interesting story.
Well, and it all is caused by wanting, in this case, wanting to have one night casual sex, but ending up in a situation that is dangerous, was very dangerous. When people try to hook up in secret, right? Because, we don't want to be called a slut, right? We don't want to be slut shamed. So we do this in secret. We hook up and we don't tell people where we are, and it leads to dangerous situations. It's just not hooking up in one night stands, but there's just so much unhappiness and depression and loneliness related to not being fulfilled and not knowing why, right?
Mm.
And you would think, well, that's what a therapist is for. Well, from my research, I found that 41% of women, of people, not just women, people who go to a therapist keep secrets from their therapist. So they're all alone with this discontinuity in their head and this secret or secrets. Like, am I too sexual? Do I want sex too much? I fantasize about having same sex. Does that mean I'm gay or not or normal or and that's what I do, Laarni. I've created programs and I'm available to help individuals. I'm not a therapist. I'm
Mhm.
someone who knows about different types of fantasies and how to actually actualize them. A therapist isn't going to tell you how to go about doing what you fantasize about. I will. So and I will help you safely, right? So
Mm.
it's a different kind of service. It's a different kind of knowledge base.
Mhm.
It's not, my knowledge is not based in books necessarily. It's also based on 30 years of experience helping women, having support groups, and having this all kind of underground.
Mhm.
So I wanted in my retirement here to bring all of who I am and my experience and knowledge above ground for mainstream women to
Mm.
help them experience joy, happiness. And that's
Mm.
also what you do. I mean, we just do it in two different ways.
Two different ways. Two different ways. So tell me, like, what is your program? Like, what is it about your program that that helps women understand themselves more?
Okay. Well, what I've done during this COVID timeout is, I wasn't planning on retiring. Well, I'm not retiring from the university till next year, but this timeout has given me all this time. So I thought, well, let me start now. Let me figure it out. So I reversed engineered the mentorship that I've given students for my whole life about
Oh.
sexuality, not university students. These are folks I've coached and
Mm-hmm.
mentored. And I reversed engineered it and I created a process called SLAY, SLAY. And I did that by reverse engineering what I do. So I had to think, how can I replicate this in a process to assure that those that sign up with me get the same kind of awesome results that those who have already spent time with me
Mm-hmm.
get.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I did. I came up with an S. S stands for C, SEE. To first you see your obstacles that are in front of you, and there's so many things in our subconscious that we're not thinking about that
Mm.
are holding us back. Like I'm so against this. Well, we talk about it privately or in a small group if they feel comfortable, looking at that obstacle and what the mindset is and how we have to shift it if we want to shift it. Second is the L, and L stands for locate possibilities. So we do a whole bunch of check sheets and look at all kinds of sexualities and things maybe outside of the box of the perspective that the person has. And we kind of decide from that, do I like that? Do I not like that? What about those possibilities? Three, the A stands for actualize. We actualize by exploring those possibilities. And we do so safely. And this is where a lot of my experience comes in so that people just don't go on the internet and start exploring, right? Because there's some really nasty stuff out there,
Yes. Yes.
right? And then why is yield to new joyful connections. That's just the joy that comes from actually fulfilling the type of life someone wants to live. And for some folks, it's becoming comfortable with masturbation by themselves. For someone else, it might be how to communicate with my husband to be able to experience something that they want. For somebody else, it might be how do I meet somebody? I'm single and I want to
Mm-hmm.
try bondage, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, we'll talk about it
Mm.
and
Mm. Mm.
I'll help that person make that happen. So, um, you know, we're on a wide spectrum of possibility with some people needing help getting comfortable with their own body, other people improving what they already have in a relationship,
Mm,
other people finding sexual outlets that they don't even know where to start.
mm.
I have a pretty cool job, Laarni.
That
It's
I'm
pretty
not gonna
cool.
lie, it is pretty cool. It is very, very interesting for me, just because it's just really interesting. Like I think I'm very confident in who I am, and I'm, under like the education. And sometimes I think I know a lot, but then I meet
Mhm.
someone like you that knows way more, and I'm just like, I sit here, I'm just like, wow, really? Like, it's just amazing to me to hear that there is somebody who's done the research, you know, somebody
And
who's
and
done
live
the reading
and lived the life.
and lived the life and the teaching. And you have a book from like the 70s, like I didn't know that book existed. So I think it's awesome that there are resources like you who people can turn to. Again, this is like another part of your coaching, your service to people is like that next level of helping people. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we shouldn't be afraid to ask these like kind of weird questions that people think are weird, like ask, and someone will answer who has education and training and experience. So I think that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm excited. There's a group of women that have worked with me for quite a while, and they've known me for quite a while. And, they're at a fourth level that I haven't mentioned. And they're at a place where they are interested in making a sacred connection to something much bigger than themselves through their sexuality. And
Mm.
they're going to Costa Rica with me next May for a retreat where we explore sacred sexuality through intuitive art. I'm also a painter.
Look
So
at that. You
we
have so
use
many levels of
paint.
yourself, Toni. You have like
I d-
all these levels that are so creative. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so it's the same. I equate the same thing as a former track, basketball, hockey, volleyball, lacrosse. I've coached it all. Um, as a former athletic coach, I know that there's a next level to playing basketball and shooting and conditioning and playing. Well, sexuality is the same thing. No matter where you are, there's another level to expression and sexual expression. We will die before we learn everything about our sexual our sexuality and expression. And I feel the same way about physical conditioning.
Mm.
Um, I know to diet and exercise, and I keep getting bigger and bigger during COVID in a way that I don't want to become bigger. And and you know, there's another layer to the psychology other than okay, eat right, exercise, girl, do it, right? um, there's there's other things sabotaging. Like it's more complicated than and that's why I hired a personal trainer
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
get into my brain and to work to the next level.
Wow, that's so cool. So that's so cool. So you have the advocacy for LGBTQ. Is it for everybody? Okay, so it's the advocacy for that. You have the teaching, the teacher, the teachings of history. You have the Costa Rica retreat that we haven't even really touched on. Like, can you give us a little bit about not what happens, but like what is the retreat for?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's actually 5 more spots left. And
Mm.
it's half sold off. It's only 10 spots and I haven't even put it officially up for sale yet. It hasn't even hit the internet. So, I went to Costa Rica a couple weeks ago with a bunch of business women, and it was a retreat about retreats. And I do retreats. And, I've been home for 16 months and damn, I wanted to get out of town. So I went to Costa Rica thinking, okay, I'll learn a little bit about retreats and I'm home, right? That's what I figured was going to happen. Well, I fell in love. with Costa Rica. And they asked, do you want to do a retreat here next May? And I said, okay. And I had some ideas of what I would do, and I meditated on it. And the natural beauty of Costa Rica just felt sacred to me. And I thought, okay, the topic needs to be sacred sexuality. Then the question is, well, what kind of workshop? Well, while you're down there and interacting and doing group work, we need to see Costa Rica. So what I came up with is like, okay, in Toulouse, France, 2 years ago, I did a painting retreat with an Apache elder, a good friend of mine, and I learned about her sacred art process. So, and she uses metallic paints and she uses gemstones. And I thought, okay, what I'm going to do in Costa Rica is help people reach the next level of their sacredness, of their spirituality through painting. So it's my own process called intuitive art, where we use acrylic paints because they dry quickly. And we have an experience. We go on a jungle tour. We go to a restaurant. We go swimming in the beach. We walk through the botanical gardens, and we put a layer of paint down. And then we have some workshops. We talk. We go do some more fun things. And then we put another layer down. And by the end, and I have lots of examples where I take pictures of my art along the way so people can see what the layering of the intuition is that comes to you through shamanic journeying. I do some drumming and I take people on a shamanic a journey through their mind, through yoga, meditation, restorative yoga. Things will come to them and then they paint. And it doesn't need to look like anything per se. Yeah. Some of my art is abstract. Some of it might look like a flower. Some of it might look like women dancing in the forest. I'm not a trained artist, so it never looks like anything that belongs in a museum. What it is a piece of art that represents my experience, right? So everyone's going to be able to leave with their own piece of art that is inspired by Costa Rica and through reflecting upon their own sexuality.
Wow.
That's it.
That is really cool. Not gonna lie, that is really cool to know that there is something like that out there to do that. Like, oh my God. I'm learning so much more about you, but also learning more about things that I didn't know about through you. So thank you for that. I really like appreciate that. I think that's really, really amazing. So if people are looking to contact you about Costa Rica or any of the other services that you have, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, I would think the best way is on Facebook. That's easiest. I mean, I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well, and I do read my messages. So if they would contact me on Facebook, it's just Dr. Toni Bear. I have a business page. I know if people aren't friends, sometimes it goes to spam and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
if I don't get back to you and you wrote to my profile, it went into that dark hole of whatever that is that I don't necessarily find for months, right? So Dr. Toni Bear, and my email is tonibearedd@gmail.com. EDD just means a doctorate in education. So it's Toni with an I, Toni, Bear as Grizzly, Toni Bear, EDD@gmail.com.
So, okay, so this is the section of the Let's Talk Java show that we call I call it the toot section because, you know, this is a great time to be able to like put yourself on the spotlight and talk about yourself or talk about anything that is coming down the pipeline. So what do you got going on?
Well, first of all, Javahh, I like espresso, but I also drink Costa Rican coffee because their coffee is fantastic.
Oh,
and part of the tour on our second day is to a cocoa fields processing.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Coffee is a thing. So What do I have going? I have the retreat, but that's a year away, right? What I'm doing now is I'm launching a course I have finished called Aphrodite Secrets that is self-contained, and it takes you through the 4 processes of slay, right? SLAY. And you do it by yourself. And if you want to be in a group of people that talk about the course and process the course, I have an inner circle membership, and it's $20 a month, and we have a seminar every month, and the group meets every Monday just to chat about their course and the things that they're experiencing. Um, and for your listeners learning, I will give you a link that takes 50% off. So it'd only be $10 a month. Okay, so that kind of, you don't have to be in the course, but it is set up to give support to those who are actually working on the slay process. If you just want to be in my group, there's a free group where we just do shenanigans and we have fun and it's all about our sexuality, but there's no curriculum or course or there's learning, but it's more fun than anything else. That's called Voyages of Aphrodite,
Yes.
but the inner circle is where the work is done. So I'll make sure I give you a link for 50% off for your listeners
Yes,
to
that would be
join.
awesome.
And the course is $197, but I'll give you a coupon that your folks can get 50% off. I got something. I think I have a special link somewhere for people that I like, Laarni.
Well, I'm hoping that you like me because, you know, these links are going to be very valuable to the listeners, especially, you know, looking for questions and stuff like that. And, you know, we're here to support these local services, small businesses and things like, ooh, I almost unplugged my headphones and like, and like, you know, making sure that we have the resources for everyone to talk to. And if they have any questions, you know, I think a lot of your work is so powerful and valuable, and you know it just builds the confidence in people and builds self-value and belief, you know, not to be ashamed of who they are. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I just, what I want is everyone to be vibrant and joyful.
Yes.
And that translates to your work life, your home life, and everything holistically speaking, right? So don't forget sex in the balance of everything that we do.
Yes, I mean it should bring you joy, right? At least
Yes.
that's what I like. I mean, at least as long as it brings me joy, I'm like, okay, I will do it. But well, Dr. Toni, thank you so much for being on Let's Talk Java today. I know it was a little bit different direction that we normally do, but hey, you know what? We're rebranding the Let's Talk Java show, and you know, Dr. Toni is going to be one of the guests in the new season that's coming up for Let's Talk Java, and I can't wait to have everybody jump in onto the YouTube channel for that. Oh, Dr. Toni, what is your podcast? I forgot. Did you say that? Ooh,
yeah, no,
I was telling
didn't.
everybody about like your podcast. How do they get to your podcast?
My God, my podcast is called Radical Rhythm Podcast. It's about women who march to the beat of a different drum. So it's the history, politics, sociology, current events, business, folks like yourself, women that think outside the box. And it doesn't have to relate directly to sexuality, it usually does, but also feminism, you know, and activists, people that are changing the world and think outside the box, right? They march to the beat of a different drum. So it's Radical Rhythm Podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad I remembered that because I was like telling everybody to go into it, and I didn't even tell you to tell us what it was.
I have a hell of a story to tell today that I gave you a little preview on.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait. So, everybody, that is today's episode of Let's Talk Java. And I want to thank Dr. Toni Bear for hopping on with me today for a little bit, giving us some time and insight on the amazing and like really cool things that she coaches, she does, and the retreats and everything. So, I'm so glad to have her on. All of her information and how you can get a hold of her and her services will be on the YouTube description. So you guys just, you know, scroll down at the bottom and her Instagram and all that stuff, how to get a hold of her will be on there. So as you know, I usually say sometimes at the end, of these shows, make sure you love one another, make sure you're kind to one another, make sure you are loving yourself first as well. So everybody have a great day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.